SpongeingTechnique.com. Thanks for joining me today for another video tutorial. So today I have something a little different and special for you. I have a technique and it is called sponging, and these are the beautiful cards that I'm going to share with you guys on how I was able to get this really awesome effect. So this was actually a requested video, so I wanted to go ahead and hop on here and create a card and show you guys a couple of tips and tricks on how you can create really beautiful backgrounds using the sponging / brewing technique. So in today's video, I'm going to be featuring the Colorful Seasons stamp set along with the seasonal layer thinlit dies. Now this is a favorite of many Stampin' Up fans, and it's been around for a little bit and it has finally made it onto the retiring list. So it is the last time I checked it was available. However, as with anything, as we get closer to the new annual catalog launching on the 3rd of June, those things, especially the dies and like the embellishments and stuff, they start to fly off the shelves because it's while supplies last. So if you haven't already got this set, be sure to head over there and check it out. I will have a link down below in the description box that will take you straight over to my online store where you can check out the last chance retirement list to see if these are still available. But anyways, this set is really awesome because it's a really huge set, and the thing I love about this is that I feel like it's a staple in my stash because it has something for every single season. So we have spring, we have summer, we have fall, we have winter, and there are some really great sentiments in here. You have You Make Me Smile, Just Breathe, Life is a Beautiful Thing, Thinking of You, and may all your tomorrows be as happy as today. And of course, like I said, for every season there's like an image that you can stamp in here. Like there's snowflakes, there's leaves, there's blossoms for the spring, there's a little lounge chair and a little sippy cup for the summer. And the cool thing about this are the coordinating dies that go with this, and there are some really beautiful dies in this set, and it's quite a few, and they're very detailed. So like you have the leaves that are detailed, the snowflakes that are detailed, and then there's this really cool like little border. And then I love how you're able to cut out multiple images with the dies. So there's that. And there is a total of, how many are in here? 17 dies that come in this set. So if you don't already have it, I highly encourage you to get it. So that's the set that we're going to be using today on these two beautiful cards here. And as far as inks, I am using Crumb Cake, which I got I had to use a different sticker because my other sticker was kind of worn. But we have Crumb Cake, we have Terracotta Tile, which is one of our new in colors, and then we have Soft Suede, and I'm using our Whisper White pigment ink. Okay, and I'm going to share with you guys a little bit of information on this ink because the Whisper White ink is a little different than our water-based regular Stampin' inks. So there's that. So those are the inks that we're going to be using today. For paper, I am going to be using Crumb Cake for my card base. So this is a standard A2 size card. I'm using a piece of regular Whisper White. I have a piece of Terracotta Tile, Soft Suede, very vanilla. This is a 1/4 inch strip. And I have a stitched circle that is cut out of vellum. So I used my stitched shaped dies. I will also be using my brewing rollers. So I have a couple of sponges here so I can sponge the background in my 3 different colors. And I will also be using my regular sponge, which is for my Whisper White ink. For the background design, I am using one of the basic pattern masks, and as you can see, I've already started creating because I did this for my Facebook Live, and I haven't washed it off yet, but this is what the mask looks like. There's a pack of a set of 4 different designs, and I'll share with you guys what it looks like when we get to this step. but this is just one of them, and I love this design. So that's how I ended up getting this awesome background that you see here. As far as embellishing, I am using some of the In Color faceted dots and some linen thread, and then of course you'll need any kind of adhesives that you have in your stash. I used Tombow liquid glue, some glue dots, and some Stampin' dimensionals on this bad boy. So with that, also I wanted to let you guys know that I do have the sentiment here, Thinking of You, which came in the set from Colorful Seasons. Here, this is this really pretty sentiment here. However, I wanted to turn the one that I'm creating now into a birthday card. So I'm going to pull in, I'm gonna see how it looks first, but I'm going to pull in the Happy Birthday from the Timeless Tulips stamp set because it looks like it's the same size. So there's that. But if I change my mind, I'll still be using the Thinking of You. It just depends on what I'm feeling like when I get to that point. All right, so now that you guys know everything that I'm going to be using on today's project, let's go ahead and get into the stamping. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create this really beautiful blended background. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull in a scrap piece of paper, because when you're doing blending of any sort of inks, you want to make sure that you cover your surface and that it's protected so you don't get ink and stuff everywhere, okay? So starting out, I am going to use my rollers, and the cool thing about this is you can rinse these little guys out. You can find these along with other sponging tools in the annual catalog on page 181. I think it's 181. Let me see, let's turn to that page. Yep, so 181. So we have regular Stampin' sponges, which come in a big circle. I usually cut mine in 4s. We have sponge daubers, and then we have our sponge brayers. So the brayers, you get 2 handles and 4 sponges, which is pretty reasonably priced for how many that you get. And for the sponge daubers, of course, you get 5 for like $5. And then for the sponge, it's a pretty cheap, cost-effective way to do ink blending and sponging techniques. And you get a set of 3 sponges for $4. And like I said, you can get a lot out of one pack. So that's where you can find these projects or these products at, okay? Just in case you're wondering. All right, so now I have a piece of paper underneath my cardstock. So I'm using a regular piece of Whisper White. And the first thing I'm gonna start off with is my soft suede. So you can get this same effect if you are using your regular sponges like this. When I did my Facebook Live, I actually used the sponges for this portion of it. But because I don't wanna spend a ton of time trying to sponge with a sponge, I'm pulling in my brayer because it's a little faster. And so all I'm doing is I'm gonna just run the brayer back and forth along the bottom edge of my cardstock. Now the cool thing about the brayer is, depending on how much ink you saturate the sponge with, is how dark it'll be on your cardstock. And I just like going back and forth. Just to kind of blend it in a little bit. And I'm moving it around just a little bit. And just like that, okay? And then I'm going to take my crumb cake, and I'm gonna dust the excess off of my brush right now. There we go. So I'm gonna take some of my crumb cake, and because it's all the same color, basically, it's all browns, I'm just gonna roll that right over it, just to soften up those colors a little bit. Burring is a lot of fun, and it's really, really easy. I feel like I'm like painting a wall. Like I said, you can also get this with just regular sponges too, the same effect. The one thing I will tell you though is you do get a softer line you use your sponges. But I think I got such a harsh line because I put down too much ink at first. So you want to kind of gradually build up your inks, unless that is the effect that you're going with. All right, so now I'm going to use my terracotta tile. Ooh, I'm not too hung up on there being a line there, because you're not going to really be able to notice it anyway, because I am going to be covering it with my with the white. So let's smooth this, kind of slide this over a little, because I'm right-handed. I don't know where that little line, that little dot came from. That's okay. We'll cover it up with something. All right. And then I'm gonna go back over this little guy with my crumb cake, just so that way this blended line isn't as noticeable. The cool thing about this is that you can do any kind of color combination you want, and it's going to be beautiful. So there we go. All right. So there we go. There's our blended background. So cool. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create our stenciled backdrop. So what I like to do is center my my piece of cardstock in front of me on my work surface, and then I am going to tape down my mask just like this. And I like to tape it down so that way it doesn't shift while I'm doing my sponging. Okay, so I'm taking my Whisper White ink, and this is pigment ink. Like I mentioned earlier, it is different from our other inks in our collection, which are water-based. This one is more thick and sticky. Okay, so it does take a little longer to dry, but what I like to do is I like to use my heat tool to kind of to allow it to dry faster. So what I'm doing is I'm going to take my sponge and I'm just going to dip it into my ink. Hopefully you guys can see this. Hopefully I'm still in frame. And you can do one of two things. You can either take your sponge and in circular motions kind of blend it out, or you can do what I'm doing, and I'm just tapping the ink onto my piece of cardstock through the stencil. And the reason why I'm doing it this way is because I actually like the effect, because it looks a little more raised when it dries. If you were to conduct circular motions, it'll look more soft. I don't want it as soft. I want it kind of vibrant, in your face, and bright. So I'm just taking this ink and I'm just tapping it and patting it over this mask. So just to kind of give you guys an idea, there are, like I said, these are called the basic pattern masks, and there's a total of 4 of them in the collection. So this is one of them, and I actually created another card when I was teaching people on my Facebook Live about the sponging technique. This is the one that I used for the other card. So that's one of the masks, and then there's 2 more. There's one that's kind of like a gothic theme. This is really pretty. And then there's one that has like the woodland background. So these would be great for like Halloween. And to be honest with you, these were actually launched in our holiday catalog from last year. So it was around Halloween / Christmas. So that's how these designs kind of like blended in with a couple of the products that they had in that catalog. And I'm so glad that they are going to be in our new catalog because we get to play a little bit more with them. So that's exciting. There we go. So that looks pretty good. Alrighty, now we're going to lift up our mask carefully. There we go. And we're gonna move this out the way. And this is our beautiful background. Isn't that gorgeous? So pretty. And like I said, you can either sit it down to dry or you can blast it with your heat tool, which is what I'm about to do. All right, let's check this out, see if it's dry. So some of it's still a little wet. So we're just gonna sit it off to the side and just allow it to continue to dry. So we're gonna finish up on stamping our sentiment and then come back to that, okay? All right, so now what we're gonna do is I'm gonna take some of my Sahara sand, or excuse me, my soft suede, and then I'm gonna take my sentiment. And like I said, I wanted to do a birthday card, but you know what? I'm just gonna stick to the sentiment that I originally stamped with earlier, and that's the thinking of you, just because I just want to keep it simple. Okay, so I'm just going to ink this little guy up, and I'm going to grab my foam mat since this is photopolymer. I'm gonna, oop, that's upside down. I'm gonna stamp this little guy right onto my piece of Very Vanilla 1/4 inch strip. And then I'm going to take my scissors, my paper snips, and I'm going to cut this down to size, just like that. All right, so now that we've done that, let's move our inks out of the way. I am going to take my card base, and we're gonna burnish our edges down, just like so. There we go. And then I am going to take, yeah, it's still a little damp. That's okay. I'm gonna take some of my glue. I'm gonna take a little bit of our glue, just like that. Yep, see, it's still wet. And we're gonna stick this little guy down just like so. Oh, I'm getting it all over my hand too. So I'm gonna try to be very careful with this. So I'm gonna take, this is what I'm gonna do. Piece of scrap cardstock that I don't really care about. And I'm just gonna press down on it. There we go. That way I'm not messing it up too bad. Because that'll be a sad day. Did all that work for nothing. Okay. Then, so now that we got that, we're going to go ahead and assemble the rest of the pieces on our card. So I'm going to take my stitched circle and some of my glue dots. So I'm going to take 2 glue dots. You can do Snell adhesive as well. You just want to make sure you use something that's clear, because you don't want to see the adhesive coming from the back. All right, so we got that, like that, just like that. And now I'm gonna take my leaf, and like I mentioned earlier, I'm using the Seasonal Layer Thinlit dies, and this particular leaf here is very detailed. But what I did is, because I like the effect that I got with leaving some of the pieces in there, that's what I did. So when I took it off of the die, I made sure to not be too rough with it because I wanted some of the leftover pieces to still stay in place. And I'm just taking like one glue dot and I'm sticking this little guy like right in place, just like that. And then I have another little leaf that I cut out of soft suede. And then for this little guy, I'm gonna take a dimensional. I like stuff all over the place right now. But I'm gonna take a dimensional and I'm gonna stick this little guy up like right beside the leaf, just like that. And then I'm going to take my sentiment and do the same exact thing. I'm gonna pop this little guy up with some dimensionals. Just like so. And stick this little guy right on top of that leaf. There we go. And then I'm going to take my linen thread. So I'm going to take about 2 pieces of this, 2 8-inch little strands, and we're going to tie a bow. I'm like on a double bow thing now. Like, it's like every bow I tie out of linen thread has to be a double bow. All right, so we're gonna tie this little guy right on up, just like that. We're gonna pull just to kind of even it up, make sure it's even. And then we're gonna trim up these little ends because we don't need all of that. I'm gonna take a dimensional, or not dimensional, but a glue dot, and I'm gonna stick this little guy right down below both of those leaves, just like that. There we go. And last but not least, we're going to embellish. So I will be using my faceted dots. So I have some in color. What are these little guys? They're in here in my little box. They are called 2019 to 2021 in color faceted dots. That's what they are. And I'm going to pull in about 3 of them. Okay, so 1 of each size. Maybe one right up there at the top. And there you go. It's a beautiful card, guys. Isn't that gorgeous? I love it. And it's still wet. All right, so I hope you guys like today's projects. If so, be sure to give me a thumbs up. I've included links to all of the supplies that I used on today's projects down below in the description box. And don't forget that we do have the retirement list going on right now. We have last chance products. So if you are interested in placing an order for some last chance items, be sure to head over to my online store, which will be linked down below in the description box. And don't forget to use the host code if your order is less than $150. I greatly appreciate your business and I would love to be your demonstrator. Also, if you want any updates on any of my upcoming events, and I have some awesome classes coming up in the month of June, and if you want to receive project inspiration, be sure to sign up for my newsletter, which is also linked below as well. But other than that, guys, that's all I got for you guys for now. So see you next time. Thanks for watching and happy stamping.